the idea that oftentimes, and maybe even in most cases, it's not an issue of a troubled teen. It's more of a problem with a troubled parent.
Yeah, I know this for firsthand.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying I wasn't in trouble, but she had many troubles. I only had a mom.
Well, it's happened again.
This happened on Tuesday, and we know it was really hot that day. Hot car. Joining us live in the Alert Center.
How long did you last in a hot car?
Facts that the heat index that day was 105 degrees. Hot car.
We don't yet know about a potential third suspect who was seen speeding away from federal agents at the scene. The whole thing had been a mystery to neighbors.
Hot car.
This is not an accident. This is pure negligence.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Hot Car Podcast. We're talking with Jay Little today from Cross Creek Manor, way back in the mid-90s?
Yeah, mid-90s, 94, 95.
And it's another chapter in our, I guess what we're calling from way back, our Survivor series. Back in our first podcast, me and another person I was working with started back in 2018 because he was a survivor of also WASP programs too. That's kind of what led me down this path. I personally am not a survivor of teen boarding schools or wilderness camps. I was coerced into getting involved with Scientology as an older teen, which was also a very strange situation. But today we're talking with you about your experiences with Cross Creek and the Litchfields and everything that involves. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. So I don't know, for people who don't really know about the troubled teen industry, for example, I did an interview yesterday with, and ostensibly the talk was going to be about her kind of Buddhist and singing bowl sound healing practices. And I kind of offhandedly said, hey, have you ever heard of TTI? Because that's also what we focus on among other topics. And she said, no. And I said, troubled teen industry. And she said, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it went into this whole thing about how she was sent to what she called a discipline home. And this private facility that no one knows about. Not kind of a weird group home, not a foster kid, not like an official, program, but just a private place that you can send your kid to.
Yeah.
And I think part of what, WASP and that organization, as it disintegrated, spawned a bunch of little offshoots kind of like that. But we'll get into that later. But I wanted to kind of give a introduction about, from my point of view, what the troubled teen industry is. And it's, it's boarding schools, wilderness camps, programs that are supposed to be ostensibly making or giving the opportunity for so-called troubled teens to get healthy. That's kind of the message that they put out. Mm-hmm. But what is it really?
So, yeah, that's what our parents thought it was. That's what they signed up for. That's what the brochure said. It was going to be help. But it was like anything but help. I think it was extremely disturbing. And it kind of stays with you for the rest of your life. Like, I'm 45. And I'm still troubled by it very deeply. And it was relatively a short period of my life, considering that, I've made it this far. So, but really, they're places that fed a lot of garbage to our parents and then turned out to be anything but what they said they were. And I don't really know anybody personally that's come out of those programs that has anything great to say about it or how it significantly changed their lives in a good way.
Right.
So.
We often, well, I do at least, joke about this idea of, there must be a good one, though. There must be good people out there in the world who can manage to get a bunch of... See, that's the problem. Like, right when you start talking about it like that, and you say, there must be a bunch of people that could get teens together in an environment to help them, I don't know, get healthier in a number of ways. Like, it just seems like something that seems possible, but then you start thinking about, well, how do they get there? How would the teens get to the place?
Okay, so most of the time the girls were kidnapped.
Right.
I didn't personally experience the kidnapped part of it, but this place did. Big men coming into your home. Usually it was in the middle of the night, and they would pick a girl up and they would take her, and usually they would pass by the parents who were sitting off in the corner being very, very quiet. And then they would get there, and either they would be told before they left what was going on a little bit, or they would be told when they got there, and then they would realize that their parents was the one that did this. And, but it would just be like a kidnapping, like really literally enacting kidnapping, because it's a scare tactic. I wasn't given that. My mom said, they can come and get you, or you can go peacefully in the morning. And at that point in time, I just decided, you know what, I guess I'll just go. But I didn't really know what the fuck I was getting signed up. Excuse my language. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. Or
That's
maybe
fine.
I would have gone, but she said that the cops would immediately come and get me. I mean, it was just... she warned me, I realized later that she did me a service by telling me what the fuck was going on. Excuse my language, but...
That's fine. No, it's totally fine. You can use any kind of language.
Most people that were there with me, and it was an all-girls facility at the time that I was there. I know that they became co-ed later, but at the time I was there, between 94 and 95, they were an all-girls... Cross Creek was an all-girls facility, and there was probably a good 150 girls, maybe a little bit more. I guess it was kind of small in terms of these facilities, but it was also not.
There were a number of kids there. It wasn't just like 10 or 20 kids. There was like a significant amount of children.
There was a significant number of kids. There was 150 kids. When I first got there, my first day of it, so what got me there was, what I thought had got me there was I had an abortion at 16, and I was not handling it well at all.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense. Who would handle that well, right?
I didn't handle it at all. And I was from a really small town of not even 1,500 people. There was less than that, even at the town I grew up in. And just really, I had my family was pressing down on not necessarily my mother, because I was raised by my mom, but not necessarily my mom and my grandmother, but everybody else was saying that I would give everybody in the family a bad name if I kept the baby and everything.
I see.
And so my mom had bought me a bus ticket to go see my friends, because she had moved to Fort Worth, Dallas, and I was about to start the school year of 94. So it was probably in the beginning of August. And I said, can I go back to my hometown? Because I had the abortion up there in Dallas. And I said, can I go back to my hometown of El Dorado and say goodbye to my friends?
Right.
And
it's kind of a fresh start kind of a thing,
Yeah, but I didn't tell anyone I'd had an abortion. I told everybody that I'd had a miscarriage.
Right.
I was pressured into this by my family.
For sure.
And literally that was my thing. I wasn't doing good in school, and I had a fucking boyfriend, and we got pregnant. That was why I was there. I wasn't into drugs and everything, but there were girls up there that were into prostitution, or that, they at the time were doing prostitution. They were in drugs and everything. So I was this little hometown girl.
Right. So let's pause.
Hold
on, let's pause for a second. So 16,
outgoing.
16, pregnant, pressured by your family to have an abortion.
Yeah.
That's why
that's why I thought I was going there. I found out later it wasn't that, but I'm setting it up for you. Like,
oh, for sure. Okay.
What happened in that place for me? I can tell you a few things about what happened to other people, but mainly I can only talk about me because it happened to me. Like,
of course.
So, anyways, I got there. Okay, so my mom drove me to this little bitty like helicopter pad type thing in the morning at El Dorado, Texas. I didn't even know it existed until that day. And there was a private little, like a little bitty plane type situation.
Really?
And they handcuffed me. I said goodbye to my mom and my grandmother, who didn't agree with this whole thing, by the way. And I got onto this little helicopter with them, handcuffed. And they only, one girl, it was this one girl and this one guy. And the girl unhandcuffed me when we were actually flying in the plane. And, so I guess it was like a personal little aircraft because it wasn't very big. It was maybe like, and so they told me on the way up there where I was going. And I was from El Dorado, Texas, and I was going to Laverton, Utah. Or I was going to, what was that place?
I think that's right.
Yeah, it was St. George, I think was the place that I flew into.
Okay, so
I was driven to Laverton.
Right.
Okay, and I was 16.
150 North
just
State
turned
Street.
16.
There you go. You mentioned grandmother and mom were not okay with it?
So my mom didn't even know about places like this. Like, we didn't even have a TV at the time. She was barely out of college, and it was just me and my sisters, and we didn't even have a TV. So the only way she even found out about these places was from my aunt, who was from Austin, who I guess was pretty familiar with sending your kid to a place like this.
So was your mom talked into it?
She was talked into it, said it was a great place.
And then last minute regretted it?
Oh, no, I don't think that happened until before she pulled me out of there.
Okay. But
I don't know where to really
it's
start.
important. I think it's important because in a lot of cases, now, justifiably so at a lot of times, people are very, justifiably upset with their parents. Who sent them away for whatever reason. But it's important to note that in a lot of cases, parents who made this decision have remorse, and it should be noted too, just for empathy's sake, for understanding that, like I said, in some cases, people can be just as pissed off as they need to be at the people who did this to them. But there are other cases where people learn and grow, too. It's important.
Yeah, absolutely. She's totally come to a place where...
Well, that's good, because you're both survivors, I think. That's what that says to me, really. Like, in situations like that...
She even told me today, before this conversation, that she regretted it, that she would change it if she could, and that she wants other parents to just be aware of what they're choosing to do with their children, the people that they birthed.
It makes a big, big difference. And we've reached out. I've reached out a little bit, not really aggressively, asking at times if there are any parents out there, sometimes, or even ex-staff. We did a big interview with an ex-staff member years ago that was pretty interesting and also fairly controversial too, because you get into these situations where you start to know better about what's really going on, and then if you choose to still back it up or stay, that's where those kinds of issues come in with parents and staff, I think.
Right.
When they refuse to recognize their part.
Yeah, so the first day that I got sent there, and I agree, she's forgiven me. Like, it took a minute after I got out of there to be able to reach her. When I say that, I mean a couple of years. Like, it took years for her to understand that where she put me was detrimental to the rest of my life. I'm 45 and it's still affecting me today.
Right.
I've learned how to deal with it, but at the same time, being from that small of a town and going to states away from everything that you know, and they take your shoes away. I was put into a plexiglass box when I first got there that was literally not that much bigger than than a bunk, like a cot.
Really?
A cot. And you could see like inside of it, there was like this fluorescent light shining down, and people could see you as you were in this box. But they took my shoes away, and I was assigned to a group that had an opening, and it was Garth Lassiter's group. And there was about, I guess, probably maybe 10 to 15 girls in my group. We were all assigned groups, and they take your shoes away, and there was a no talking policy, so we couldn't really talk unless we were in certain areas that we were allowed to talk. We weren't allowed to talk, and that really affects you then and there.
I've heard situations where, especially on initiation or entry into these programs or similar programs, where people had to ask permission for like every single thing they did.
Yes.
Like literally everything. Like, can I reach for the doorknob kind of situation? Can I turn the doorknob? Like, really weird.
So it's very brainwashing to be, it's the shock factor of it, the fear factor of it, and then just the practice of it is very brainwashing. And,
right. Because to make note for people listening, this program in particular was for, I believe, people from ages 12 to 19.
Yeah.
That's a huge range. That's like from child to adult, basically.
Exactly. And there's not a lot of states in the United States that at 19 is like very late. Like in Texas, you're allowed to be of legal age at 17.
Right.
So for us that were from Texas, seeing a girl that was still there and she was on her way to being 19, you were like, oh my God, we're prisoners. It's so shocking. It is so fast. Like, it's the effect of it is immediately. You're put in a basement of this manor type home looking thing.
Right. Because at that point,
in the basement, I didn't have warm showers for 9 months of my life. And I mean cold blasting water. Right. And we were forced to bathe. You couldn't not bathe. You couldn't not eat. And that's another thing. The food quality was so bad that we gained so much weight. It was insane. You would go in there like this little petite, happy teenager, and they would fuck you completely up. And I know that sounds pretty not important.
No, I've heard several times with WASP, but specifically about force feeding.
Yeah,
absolutely.
WASP.
Yep. Like really kind of clean your plate kind of situations, or you're going to get in all kinds of trouble.
Yeah, and you're given 5 minutes to eat. Do you know that? Do you know what that does to your metabolism? You're forced to eat everything on your plate, and you're given 5 minutes to eat it. That means you have to hurry up and eat it. We're not allowed to talk unless we're in group.
Yeah, it's a sedation technique, because what happens if you have to eat that much food that quickly, your body goes into complete digestion mode, apart from anything else, thinking. Any kind of other activity that isn't vital to processing all that food. It causes people to become passive.
Yeah, and then just like there was staff, and there was we didn't even really have a teacher. We were given like modules. We were supposed to teach ourselves. Like, our schooling just went right the fuck out the window. Like, I don't care at what stage you were in school, what kind of a student you were, it was just like your education was immediately taken from you. Like, you weren't going to go very far. Yes, there were girls that graduated there, but it was like on a module system. Like, you did whatever they gave you, and they would give you a credit. Supposedly of college, whatever, but there are a couple of girls that graduated from that and actually did something great with their life from my group. That was wonderful. Like, one became a judge, and one became like a teacher, that I know of. One's a massage therapist. Like, they did really great, but then there's some of us that didn't do great. We didn't do great at all.
Sure. I know people on like both sides of that fence, really, and oftentimes they're doing the great things and also having the other really fucked up stuff going on as well. Like, sometimes they kind of go together, because I think what happens oftentimes with these kids who get sent away, they just happen to be like the best kids. Like, it's a deep, dark secret They may be the most creative, interesting, smart, curious children on the planet. And those are the ones who, unfortunately, because they are interested in the world and discovering things and doing it like things out in the world aside from, their family or in spite of their family or any number of things, those are the ones who go to get tortured. It's wild. We should be celebrating those kids. We should be teaching the parents how to better interact with their own, offspring rather than trying to make the children conform to, outdated thinking in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and then there were girls there for conversion therapy. My friend Shannon really comes to mind. She was locked in isolation, just like pretty much every day for the 9-10 months that I was there straight. Wow. And it was like a padded room with carpet on the walls, and then there was a camera shining down at you, looking at you at all times. You had to sit in the middle of the carpeted room with your hands in your lap, not doing anything, and sometimes staring up at the camera and not saying anything and not doing anything. That was what isolation was. But anyways, they liked to take her down a lot. There were staff members that would take her down and so they were constantly taking her down and putting her in isolation. She didn't do anything but be gay. She was just gay. Right. And her parents didn't want her to be gay, so they put her there to make her not gay anymore. And guess what? She's still gay today. But
surprise.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was super it was kind of torture, And so we would see that happening to her. We wouldn't want to do anything, to get us in trouble or whatever. But the only time we were allowed to talk was in group. We couldn't talk when we got home at our manor from, where we went to go to school, which was a different place. We rode a bus there every day. It wasn't a bus. It was a little van, a transport van.
Oh.
Anyways, we weren't allowed to talk. And then we would sneak talk, when we were outside walking around the outside. There was this really high fence where you couldn't get over it, but you could see the mountaintops in Liverpool, Utah.
Right.
And it was cold, and we didn't have shoes, and weren't allowed shoes because shoes were a flight risk. So for 9-10 months, I didn't wear shoes. That sucks. And it doesn't matter what, degree it is outside, you're still walking out there and stuff. But we would, when we were going around the outside area, when our backs were turned to them, we would talk. And then if they could see our mouths, we wouldn't talk. But it was super oppressive and controlling. You couldn't do anything without asking permission. And then if the health inspector or anything were going to come, we had to clean everything. Sometimes there was a lot of times there was rat shit in the kitchen and stuff that wouldn't pass inspection. So we had to clean it up all the time, every time. We weren't allowed to talk to our parents. Our parents couldn't call us. And if we did talk to our parents, it was in the same room with staff. There was a woman named Kathy Christensen. She was supposed to be the family representative.
Gotcha.
When the parent called, you were in there with her. And so the parent, if you said anything negative about the program, you would be penalized after the phone call. If you asked to go home, you would be penalized. Then the parents were told that the children would be extremely manipulative. So it didn't matter what they said.
Right.
Negative, that all the kids said that, and it was just part of the way us manipulative kids were, and for them to just not listen to us or whatever. So pretty much they could get away with anything. We didn't go outside of the school. If we did, we went to if we got there was 6 phases, and phase 6 was the best. You were probably fixing to go home if you're on phase 6.
Right.
I was there almost 10 months, and I never got on phase 6. The highest I got to was phase 3. If you got dropped, you usually got put down to whatever building or level you were at. And if you were in the basement, you had cold showers and stuff. And when you went upstairs, honestly, I don't remember if you had warm showers by then, but when you got to the next facility, you could take warm showers.
I wanted to ask about the level system to kind of let people know more about that, because there was a lot of like peer-to-peer, what would you call it? Like the upper levels really controlled the lower levels in a lot of cases, so staff could kind of stand back and watch some of that going on.
Well, no, kind of a little bit. Like they were made to like kind of influence you to do certain things, but honestly what I remember is my group was not a bunch of snitches. Okay. Honestly, like in the whole place, there were groups that would tell on each other like constantly. They were telling on each other so they get in trouble, but our group wasn't. Well, no, I don't remember our group being full of snitches.
That still happens, by the way. To make a kind of a light point, like a lot of survivors still have some of those issues, and you know what? Sometimes you just got to roll with it.
Yeah, no, I'm still friends today with a lot of the girls I was in there with. That's so great. I have good memories.
That's good.
You know, but the closer you got to going home, of course, you were like, literally, you faked it till you made it. Like, we knew when we got in there after a very short time that we were going to have to act and say a certain way and do the things a certain way, or we were never going to get the fuck out of there. Like, we had people that were examples of that were like 19. They were still fucking there.
Right.
If your parents stopped paying and they happened to not be talking to you at the time, you happened to not have a communication with them at the time, they've been known to take you to St. George or whatever and drop you off on the street. They did not care what happened to you after that.
Yes.
Like, if your parents were unable...
Yep.
Yeah, if they weren't able...
The thing I was asking about the older levels was more like about... did they do like... or like kind of compelled you to do write-ups on other kids, like snitching like that.
So you should be. So that's why I never got very high. Like, I still came out very brainwashed, unfortunately.
Right.
It still did its job, even though I thought the whole time I was there that I was fighting it. I literally still had problems when I got out. But,
I mean, in a lot of cases, not a lot maybe, but in some cases, the ones who really, really got into it, transitioned into being like junior staff.
Yeah, I didn't ever understand that.
There have been some people there have been some, like, I guess, survivors, so to speak, who've started their own programs.
I have heard that. I think it's crazy, and I kind of don't support it, but you don't understand the level of brainwashing and sucked up things that, you know, a child is very impressionable. I don't give a fuck. If you're 16, you're still a fucking kid. You don't know anything about the world yet. And that kind of trauma, maybe some girls weren't as traumatized by it, but I, coming from my background, was super traumatized immediately from the word get-go. The plane flight over there, the whole fucking thing, the glass box.
Right. I mean, treated worse than an adult criminal.
Yes, exactly. And we had not done crimes yet. Like, we'd not been in trouble. We were not there. This was supposedly the place you go before all that happened.
Exactly. But adult criminals have more rights. It's insane.
And then it was like ingrained in our head to not talk about it. Right. So when the Breaking Code Silence and No More Survivors came out, by the time you're in your 40s, you're like, wow, really? Finally? Like, I never saw it happening. I never saw this happening. I never saw this movement happening.
Right. There was so much going on, like, kind of, for a long time, really, in, like, message boards, or very specific, like, Reddit stuff, for years. Yeah. But it really took, Paris Hilton did a great service.
Yeah, she did, and so did.
And even though that bill is a bunch of, it's really not great, and it's not going to pass. But it's just not like. But what's good about it is that it just continues to build awareness. The documentaries that are coming out now. Let Us Pray, about the Baptist folks, Hell Camp. even if there are like inaccuracies or it's dramatized and made, more entertaining, that's all very worthwhile. And I'm super happy to.
Well, I remember that story. I watched Hell Camp, and I remember that one story about the girl dying in Provo Canyon. I remember them still talking about it between, when we were allowed to talk, we would talk about it amongst each other about how that girl died in Provo.
Well, you know what?
And there were still people that were from like that area. Hey, are you from Provo? Like when we would be sitting in like the transportation line, we could talk a little bit and some,
Well,
but we would find out if people were from Samoa or if people were from, Paradise Cove or St. George, like in different places. But,
what's insane about that is, and I don't know, I didn't watch Hell Camp, but I did some research about it and like the kind of some of the court cases and stuff. And one of the staff members, or two of his former like business associates testified against him and then started their own program where a young man named Aaron Bacon died. They did exactly the same thing. Like it's so wild to be a part of it and then take down the guy that was your boss and then do the same thing.
Yeah, well, Bob Litchfield, the owner of Cross Creek, he was from Provo Canyon, from what I hear. So,
wow. Wait, like he was in the Provo program before. That's what I heard. I was heard he was part of Provo. I don't know
Canyon.
if it's true. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Litchfield,
but I don't
Bob
know
Litchfield.
if it's true. I don't know.
That he was from that program and he made Cross Creek.
That Bob Litchfield went to Provo as a kid.
I don't know that he went to Provo. I think he was staff at Provo. I think he was part of the staff there.
Yeah. I know that. Well, I'm pretty certain. I don't want to say anything, incorrect, but I'm pretty certain that the Litchfields created their program, but the adults involved didn't go, but some of their children did.
Probably some of the children.
I know some of their own children went.
I heard that he has connection with Provo Canyon. So,
certainly,
and he's the owner of Cross Creek.
Oh yeah. They're still doing stuff in Hurricane. Right?
That's crazy.
To this day.
That makes me sick. I hope it stops.
They built a big rec center, the Litchfield Rec Center in Hurricane. It's like a big gym, for the community.
Yeah, the rec center, right? Yeah.
Yep. It's just
I don't really remember a lot of. I had to go back and ask some people. Hey, was I there from between 93 or 94 or 94 or 95? I had to ask. 94 or being 45 is a long time ago.
Right.
I was 16, so it's been a long time.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that I had to ask some people about. Did this happen or what time was this? Or
it affects you. That kind of weird manipulation and lying to
it really does.
It really affects you, and these people are totally delusional. They should keep that to themselves, I think, and not try to rope other people into it.
That's true, and they literally steal money.
It's money, and it's the money. Really. That's
my mom spent so much money. They lost everything, literally sending me to that place. But back to the being pregnant and not being pregnant.
Sure.
They even there was no accredited people there to be doing any kind of thing to your mind, and they were still doing that.
Not at all. Right. We've looked that up too. Various places go ahead.
Going in there with those kind of problems, they even put me, I was rooming with a girl that was extremely pregnant. I made myself believe that I was still pregnant and had to go to a doctor, and a doctor tell me that I was no longer pregnant.
Oh, no.
I had some serious problems that needed to be addressed, and they were not addressed at all.
Wow, yeah. Right, like I was saying, I've looked up so many different programs. We've done exposés on different programs, just kind of looking up their oon website, their own information, and then doing deeper dives into each person, kind of looking them up on LinkedIn, their own public facing information. And every single time, these people are totally unqualified, don't have any kind of the right experience.
Yeah, exactly. Especially to be having those kind of problems when you get out. I went from being out going to holding my mom's hand when I got out of there to go into the mall to go get my hair cut.
Right.
Like, I went from outgoing and having a life to coming out and not even knowing who the fuck I was, totally paranoid about my surroundings. And like, it was horrible.
Right.
It was really, really horrible.
Yeah. So I guess to, kind of, wrap things up, what, for people who are still struggling, or for parents who are considering this stuff, what would be like, I mean, if you've already gone through it and are struggling with, like, coping skills, I mean, you're certainly not, going to have a bunch of answers for other people, but what is it that you can do for yourself that helps?
So I just remind myself that I wasn't the horrible person that I was made out to be,
right.
Because you had to admit to all kinds of things. Like, it was my fault that I got molested. It was my fault that, they would ingrain that into your head that you are nothing but manipulative. It's your fault that bad things happen to you,
And that's not true.
Just like when you get out, if you've been sent there, when you get out, just to forgive yourself and know that you're not the person that they made you out to be. And I would tell the parents to think about your children before you do that. No matter what they're going through in life and how bad you think it is right now, or how bad you think they need to turn around or are, just know that, the judicial system probably hasn't sent them here because they're not really about that.
Right. That's
more of a parent doing that to you thing. So I would tell the parents, think about the child that you created. Do you really want to affect them in this way? And be broke. Go broke while doing it. Like,
right.
It's got no good benefit for the person at all. And you will go broke sending your child to a program like this.
And it's not going to save your family. In fact,
literally,
it's the beginning of the destruction of other relationships as well too. That's super important to remember too. That if you send your child away, it's going to cause massive disruption in your whole life.
They're going to come back and don't know how to have relationships. They don't even know how to be a person.
It takes away your future. I'm even talking like extended family who.
Exactly.
Ties will be broken with people that aren't even related to the situation because they disapprove of it so heavily. Yeah,
it causes so many problems. You think that child is such a handful, and either you want to be rid of them because they are putting such a hard time on you, or you want to shape them into something that you think they need to be because of what they're, But either way, they're going to come out of there, and they're not, in all honesty, going to thank you for what you've done for them. They're probably going to have problems with you the rest of their life in some form or fashion. So,
right. I like to think of it as like, look, parents, you had your shot. Okay,
mm-hmm.
You went through your childhood. Hopefully unmolested and within some kind of family unit. Give your child the same allowance.
Yep. Exactly.
Think
Let
about
them experience
think about yourself as a parent and analyze that rather than try to place all this judgment on your child, because it's really all about you. When you really think about it, that's your creation. So take
and it's what you can and cannot deal with. And this is a temporary fix for you and a lifetime of hell for them.
That's right.
Mentally to go through.
Well said.
Well, it's happened again.
This happened on Tuesday, and we know it was really hot that day. Hot. Joining us live in the Alert Center.
How long did you last in a hot car?
Facts that the heat index that day was 105 degrees.
We don't yet know about a potential third suspect who was seen speeding away from federal agents at the scene. The whole thing had been a mystery to neighbors.
This is not an accident. This is pure negligence.